So, we look like we're ready. But this is day one. It's about the work. And I've said that from day one. It'll always be the same message. It's about work. You got to go earn your right every year. It doesn't matter what the players are, the coaches, expectations, where you were, where you're going. We got to work, man.
Wants to throw it to Stewart. He caught it. He stole the first down. Oh, yes. The big man dives down to the 31-yard line. Oh, that is beautiful.
Let me tell you something. I love this team now. I got goosebumps, gentlemen. I love this team.
Fields looking, pressured, hit from behind, taken down. Aiden Hutchinson got him.
What do you think about the secondary?
Just look at the name, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You drafted Branch.
It started off with that huge hit on Beasley.
McCollum bends out. There's a big hit right away. And boom!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Goff dropped it in the bucket that time.
We're in our window now to win.
Aaron Rodgers exits the NFC North as a loser. Man, what a great day it is today. Hey, what's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome to Off the Cuff, episode 30. It's ball time. Kansas City Chiefs, Detroit Lions coming up this Thursday, 8:20 p.m. NFL opening week, premier showdown. Lions ready? Let's find out. Give me just a second here while I get a few things adjusted. Before we get rolling, though, I wanted to jump into a little bit of news that I just caught. It's a couple hours old already, but I've had a busy day. So Chris Jones still not signed by the Kansas City Chiefs. And there was an interesting tweet that came out basically stating that the Cowboys may be a suitor and the potential trade would include a first-round pick and Osa from the Cowboys. So things are not trending well for Chris Jones to be in this game, which is a huge benefit to the Detroit Lions, and not having to, protect Penei Sewell or Taylor Decker from the onslaught that Jones will bring. It adds a whole new level of dimension to what that offense is going to be able to scheme up. But that's not the only answer, and it's not the only problem the Lions are going to have to deal with on Thursday. And I wanted to get into a lot of that tonight, and this is part one of a two-part series. So tonight we're going to do Detroit Lions offense versus the Kansas City defense, or I'm sorry, other way around. Detroit defense versus the Kansas City offense, and some of the things that we've researched and wanted to put together for everybody to share and get your thoughts and opinions on, exactly what this Detroit team is up against, and can they pull it out? I mean, we're going to find out here in 4 short, days that they're going to go live, and they've got to be ready. So before we get to all that, welcome to episode 30, Off the Cuff, an NFL podcast about the Detroit Lions. We are presented and produced by Rocked On Detroit Lions and Rocked On Podcast Network. Today's episode, we're going to discuss the massive NFL premier opening kickoff game versus the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions, coming up this Thursday, September 7th at 8:20 p.m. at none other than the most iconic venue in all of the NFL, Arrowhead Stadium. It's quite possible that I might be going down to the game. We might travel down on Wednesday. we're still kicking it around. We'll see. Today's episode is a multi-part series, as I said a minute ago. Part 1 is going to be the Detroit Lions defense versus the Kansas City offense and some of the schemes and particulars and keys that we put together. Essentially what we're looking at are, what are the risks? What are the opportunities for the Lions to be successful against such a high-flying offense as the Kansas City Chiefs? We'll finish with some predictions about the game and some keys about the game. The second part we're going to do on Wednesday night at 8 p.m., roughly 8 p.m. Hopefully Andy will be back for that show, and we might be bringing on a couple of guests. Speaking of guests, on September 10th, we have a former Detroit Lion coming on. I'm not going to say his name now, but he will be joining us on September 10th, and that should be a wonderful show. We're looking forward to having him on and discussing everything, about his career and get his take on the current Detroit Lions and talk a little bit about, his life and what he's up to. Like I said earlier, too, part of the reason why we're waiting to do the second half of this show is Chris Jones. Nobody knows, what is he going to sign? Is he going to play? Is he going to get traded? I have a feeling that if he doesn't sign anything before Thursday and if he doesn't play in this game, Chiefs are probably going to move on. But that's none of our concern. It's only our concern for Thursday, right? So one last tidbit of info here, and that's please do us a favor and visit the links in our description and our bio. There is a link tree that will bring you to all of our links. Again, it's not some spammy link. It's there to be a uniform and organized way for you to have access to all of the different things that we're involved in and everything that we're trying to bring to social media. It's the easiest way to support us. Just by clicking subscribe, like, or follow is the simplest way you guys can benefit our channel here and the effort that we're putting in to try to bring you guys some good content. But before we get rolling, please do us a favor, jump in the chat. Let us know what state you are in. We've had people from LA, from Alaska, Hawaii, of course, Michigan, Indiana, Florida, all over the place. This podcast is almost gone international, but we've definitely gone to a wide range of states, and we're happy to have everybody in. All these Lions fans, whether you're a new Lions fan and an OG Lions fan, a same old Lions fan, we don't really care. We want them all. Love to have you. So, all right, let's get rocked on these Detroit Lions, right? There were a lot of great questions that came in throughout the week, and specifically about this Detroit Lions KC matchup. And it brings me to another point. If you'd like to participate in the show and you'd like to have your questions answered or get our take at least and state your opinions or whatever you'd like to share with the show and with the audience and anybody else that's going to listen or watch this podcast in the future, just send us an email, info@rockedonpodcastnetwork.com. Again, that's info@rockedonpodcastnetwork.com. And we'll be more than happy to get to your questions. And tonight I'm managing this solo, so all of the questions that come into the chat or statements or opinions or whatever, I will get to it. I promise you I'm not ignoring you. I just want to get to a lot of this, and I'll take a break about every 5 minutes or so and check the chat. All right, so with that, here we go. Man, you guys ask a lot of really great questions. And right away, the first question has multiple components to it. And it is a question within many questions. It has a very long answer. I'll try to be as brief as I can. But I want to do my best to keep the question in line and the perspective in line and really attack it, from all 360 degrees. And that's what I'm going to try to do for you guys tonight. So, all right, here we go. Bear with me because this is going to be a long one. Hey, first check just popped in. Brett Berger. Probably butchered your last name. I apologize. But from the UP, lifelong Lions fan. It's historically been pitiful, but optimistic this year. We all are, Brett, and we really appreciate you joining the podcast with us tonight. Hopefully you're able to hear the beginning part where I promise I'll get to all the questions in the chat as often, as quickly as I can. But keep them coming in. I'll get to them all, I promise. But welcome in. Thanks, Brett. So here's the first question. How can the Detroit Lions effectively contain Patrick Mahomes? And what defensive schemes should the Lions use to limit the effectiveness of the Chiefs' high-powered passing attack? That is a very convoluted question that has so many layers, it's not even funny, but we're going to do our best. And thank you, Joe, from Michigan, for sending that in. So to answer this question, I feel like we should kind of go back to what the Chiefs are bringing to the table this season and where they finished last season. There have been some changes and changes that could drastically, have a negative impact on this Kansas City team. Keyword could. This is an Andy Reid team by all accounts. So it could. Doubtful. The Chiefs finished 16th last season from an offensive weaponry category. It's a unique category, but earlier in training camp, an insider consensus was that the Chiefs slid down to the 19th ranked offensive weaponry system. This is based solely on positional strengths analysis, talent acquired through the draft, free agency, returning players they lost, and the expected initial depth chart or 53-man roster, if you will. But not a huge deal, right? They only slid 3 spots. It's hardly an impact, you would think. But maybe there's more to it than what meets the eye, and I'm going to try to uncover that a little bit tonight. First at running back, the Chiefs have 3 different skill sets with their running back core. Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. All 3 of them are dynamic rushers, and they all 3 do different things. Some do things better than others, and McKinnon is the one I'm honestly most worried about. He is the better pass target for Mahomes. Last season, he had 56 receptions on 71 targets, 512 yards, and 9 TDs. He had 72 touches for 291 yards with 1 TD on the ground. When I look at those numbers, and then I look at what the Lions were able to do last season on the ground, this is exactly what I'm hoping we get out of Gibbs this season. I think that would be a phenomenal beginning season. But when I look at the 9 TDs through the air, that scares me a little bit for what the Lions are going to have to put up with. Whenever he's on the field, he's going to be a problem. Helaire had 71 touches, 302 yards, and 3 TDs on the ground. Only 17 receptions for 151 yards and 3 TDs through the air. Isaiah Pacheco, he really carved a very significant role. And I guess it should be said, too, that Helaire was underutilized last season. It seemed like he got kind of hot. And then he, for whatever reason, it seemed like the Chiefs kind of backed away from him. And Pacheco kind of worked his way up. But, he carved a significant role down the stretch. Pacheco did since about week 10 last season. He averaged just over 15 opportunities per game. Despite playing about 60% of the snaps, or less than 60% of the snaps, he still led the team in carries. 170 carries, 830 rushing yards, and 5 TDs. The main knock, if you will, against Pacheco last season was his lack of involvement in the passing game. But that's where they have this dual threat, running back system with McKinnon and Pacheco. And it's very similar to what you're going to see with the Detroit Lions this season, with Montgomery being the Pacheco and with Gibbs being more of the McKinnon, even though those roles are kind of reversed. That's what we expect to see out of the Lions. And I'm going to withhold a lot of my offensive strategy, I guess, till Wednesday, or I'm going to try to. But I just think it's interesting when you look at the Chiefs lineup and what they're doing and what this Lions team is starting to put together and how the similarities are starting to line up. You just really got to look at it. And some things really, really point out to me that shows me that the Lions are really trying to gain an edge from different verticals of the game. But let me get to the chat here. Hey, we got another one from Brett. He says, realistically, the Lions are probably losing this one in KC. I really want to see them play them tough. A win is a huge bonus. Still expect the Lions to win the division. I do think the Lions under Dan Campbell have done well against running quarterbacks. So, Brett, let me get to your question here, or your statement, if you will. I would largely agree with you. And I would say that number one, playing KC tough is exactly what we need to see the Lions do. If they pull this out, this win would be such a statement win for the Detroit Lions. I don't think that they would stop winning for a while based on the roster that or the schedule that they're facing in the first 10 weeks. This is a huge opportunity for the Lions to really gulp up a lot of air underneath their wings, man, so they can soar through the beginning part of the season. The last part of your statement, though, that the running quarterbacks, that's one of the major issues we actually had last season, was running quarterbacks were eating us alive. And I hope that we get it fixed. We saw Bryce Young run for a 17-yard run quickly in the last preseason game, albeit preseason, meaningless, second and third stringers, I get it. But when I saw that, it just made me cringe a little bit and thinking of Justin Fields and the 200-plus yards that he put on us, the Panthers and the 300-plus rushing yards they put on us, Jalen Hurts, I think he put up a $160 on us. So, yeah, there was some issues with the running game, or the running defense, running defense, sorry. So let me move forward here. Isaiah Pacheco, like I said, he's not really a passing game threat, in my opinion. Doesn't mean that he won't become one, or doesn't have the ability to become one. But based on the history that we have in front of us already, he's not one. And that's what McKinnon's job is. So when McKinnon is in this game, I would expect that the Lions would really key in on him being a receiving threat 100% of the time that he's on the field, not just a running back. And that, he's really been utilized as a gadget guy who can mix things up. Offensively, he could really cause trouble for the Lions. Defensively, when Kelsey is also lined up, and in the game at the same time. And again, there's similarities with the Detroit Lions. I think about Gibbs and Laporta. Here you got McKinnon and Kelsey. Now, obviously, Laporta's no Kelsey. Nobody is a Kelsey. But I think you get what I'm saying there. So the Chiefs' wide receiver depth chart. This is where there could be some issues for the Chiefs. But then again, it's an Andy Reid-led team, so I'm not gonna expect that. But it is a little bit of a sketchier depth chart than in seasons past. And they kept 7 receivers on this initial 53-man roster. That's crazy to me. I wanted the Lions to keep 7. That's just because I didn't want to see Dylan Drummond or Chase Cota exit, and I was hoping that Denzel Mims would make it through camp. But it is what it is. They kept 5, and they've got Jamison Williams, who's on suspension. Doesn't mean they won't keep 6 when Jamison Williams comes back, but I really expected the Lions to keep 6. I really did. On the active 53-man, without the suspension. All right, so they kept 7 on receivers on the 53-man. You got Kadarius Toney, which, by the way, just came out today, I believe. I think I posted about it, too, that he's good to go for this game. So he's had a knee injury for the entire training camp. It was unknown if he was going to suit up in this game. But he is cleared, good to go, according to Andy Reid. Is it tactics by Reid? We don't know yet. We won't know till Thursday. But Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdez, Scantling, Sky Moore, Justin Watson, Richie James, Rashee Rice, and Justin Ross round out the 7 wide receivers that the Chiefs kept on this initial 53-man. Who they suit up for the game is a different story. I think that they'll dress 5, and I think that those 5 are going to be Scantling, Justin Watson, Sky Moore, and Kadarius Toney. Who they all those guys, those 4, they are returning for their second season with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So you do have a continuity factor, right? And then you have Rashee Rice, who was drafted in the second round this season, who the Lions better not sleep on. Rashee Rice. He's actually somebody I wanted the Lions to target, but he, in this year's draft, he was selected a lot earlier than I think a lot of people were giving him credit for. So first, let's dive into Valdez-Scantling. He's back with the Chiefs after a modest first season. He's set career highs in targets and receptions, and operating more as like a situational deep threat. He's been Mahomes' favorite target throughout training camp this season, and he could be poised to produce, the biggest numbers of his career, or at least while in KC. He perhaps could even become the favorite target, after tight end Travis Kelce. I mean, we all know that Mahomes' number one target is Kelce. But the issue is his production simply isn't consistent. And, fantasy world be damned, he's yet to deliver a top 50 fantasy campaign since 2018. So I feel the Lions won't have, a hard time bottling him up, especially with the addition of Cam Sutton. It's doubtful that Mosley's obviously going to play in this game. But I have no issue, with Cam Sutton being on Tony. Whether that matchup would happen or not is yet to be seen. I just don't think Tony's going to be a tough one to bottle up with his inconsistent play. Scantling. Moving on to Kadarius Toney. He was a mid-season acquisition for the Chiefs last season. He caught 21 passes on 27 targets for 221 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2022. Although he did play a little less than 45% of the snaps in every game during that stretch, after he was acquired, his 29.4% targets per route run was the highest mark at that position. Basically, what that means is Mahomes went to him often. Early reports suggested that Toney is the favorite to emerge as the number one wide receiver. And the biggest question mark is obviously his health. He's only played 19 out of 34 games, or regular season games, the 70% plus snap share just one time. He was listed as questionable, like I said earlier, with the knee injury that he suffered early in camp. Till about noon today is when we'd found that he was actually going to be able to suit up in this game. So again, like I said, could this be a tactic? We don't know. We'll find out come kickoff. The third receiver, Sky Moore, a second rounder last year, he really didn't do much at all last season. He's, again, not somebody that I'm terribly concerned about for the Detroit Lions. He really failed to impress or even make an impact before scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl. So he's on the breakout list for 2023. But again, I feel like this is someone, that Branch or CJ Gardner-Johnson won't have an issue defending. And the reason why I mentioned, those two is because I feel like Sky Moore is obviously going to be lining up in the slot. And when you're in the nickel, I feel like that's where, Sky Moore is going to be lined up with is Branch or CJ Gardner-Johnson. The next receiver I want to talk about here is Justin Watson. He's a 6-year vet in the league. So he entered this league as a 5th-round pick, 144th overall by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that was in the 2018 draft. He had 15 receptions on 34 targets for 315 yards and 2 TDs in 2022. He is not someone that I'm terribly worried about either. And I know I've said that for 4 guys in a row. Should the Chiefs dress, Justin Ross or Richie James, who I feel offer more versatility than Watson, then I would be a little bit more concerned. But right now, when I'm looking at this depth chart, with Scantling, he's got problems, with consistency. Toney, he's got problems with injuries. Sky Moore has yet to do anything. Justin Watson really hasn't ever done anything. And then you've got Rashee Rice, who, let's just be honest here. His pedigree, his bloodline is what it is, right? Your last name's not Rice, and you don't play wide receiver in the NFL if you don't have, some sort of bloodline backing you up, and he does. The guy's an absolute terror as a wide receiver. He's the guy I'm actually most concerned about. I just don't know if he's going to get significant playing time. So Lions better not sleep on Rice. He is someone that like I said earlier, I desperately wanted the Lions to pick up, but going in the second round versus the third or the fourth round where he was originally slated, obviously didn't make the Lions list. So Rice earned a first-team All-American Athletic Conference honors, finishing in the top 5 in the FBS in receptions for 2022 with 96. He finished third with receiving yards with 1,355. He led the Mustangs in receiving touchdowns, finding the end zone 10 times in 12 games. This guy's a baller. Rashee Rice, I believe, is going to be somebody special in this league in short order. He may have to work up the depth chart a little bit, but once he catches fire with Mahomes, man, I think it's lights out for this kid. I really do. The reason why I haven't been worried, about a lot of these receivers is simply because the Chiefs lost 2 of their biggest producers. And that was Juju Smith-Schuster and Mecole Hardman. They combined for, there's an interesting stat on them. They combined for 100 receptions and 7 TDs. And it should be noted that Juju played all 16 games and Mecole Hardman only appeared in 8 games last season. But the key is that they combined for 26 plays over 20-plus yards. So the Chiefs have lost a significant piece to their downfield game. Who's going to step up and take that place? I don't see a Juju Smith-Schuster or Mecole Hardman on this team. Rashee Rice will end up being able to do it. Sky Moore is a burner. He's very fast, but he's also very short. If anybody can stick with him, in the defensive secondary, it's simply just getting, around him and getting in front of the ball. But being able to stay hip to hip with him is going to be the issue with Sky Moore because he's so damn fast. But I don't think Kadarius Toney or Valdez Scantling are going to be an issue for this Detroit Lions secondary. But we'll get to more of that here in just a minute. So, of course, Mahomes will do just fine, right? I mean, even with one of the league's worst wide receiver depth charts last season, he still won the MVP. And even with a slightly better group a year ago, he won the Super Bowl. So outside of Marquez Valdez-Scantling, this is a young group. And there's a chance that Toney Moore or even Justin Ross emerges as the number 1 wide receiver this season. It's still all up in the air for Kansas City. So the Lions are walking into a really great opportunity right now. So in the beginning of this podcast, we talked about risks and opportunities. This is an opportunity. If the Lions can really shut down the passing game by holding the lower depth chart players accountable and really staying in front of them, they have a great opportunity. So this kind of brings me to my last point about the offensive receiving crew, though, and it's not a receiver, but it's Kelsey. Kelsey is Kelsey, right? And as long as Kelsey is Kelsey, the Chiefs are going to be fine. And Kelsey dominated the tight end position. He finished as the number 1 overall tight end for the 6th straight time, or at least the 6th time in 7 seasons. He posted career highs in targets, 152 targets last season. He pulled down 110 receptions, 12 TDs, to go along with 1,338 receiving yards for a tight end. He's just a giant wide receiver. Kelsey's shown no signs of slowing down, though. Has he? I don't think he has. So he really belongs in a tier of his own. As a true separator in the tight end position, mean, Kelsey's just done it the best. I think there was another stat that came out today. He's only about 1,400 yards away from breaking, I believe it's Antonio Gates' record for third most receiving yards overall in history of the NFL. So he could do it this season. He's definitely going to do it by next season as long as he stays healthy. So, I mean, Kelsey's Kelsey, like I said. He is going to be 34 years old this season. So he doesn't have much time left, that well, I shouldn't say that. He may not have much time left to play in this league at a high level. Who knows how long he's gonna last. I mean, he's already accomplished everything you could want to accomplish, and then some. If he were to decline or suffer an injury, this season, or if the Chiefs didn't have Mahomes for any period of time to conduct this fine orchestra that he does, then I would say that the look of these underwhelming wide receivers would be a very big problem. But to effectively, contain Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs' passing attack, and based on what I just read, the Lions, should focus on really generating consistent pressure on Mahomes. And this can be achieved through creative blitz packages, strong defensive line play, stopping the run, and making the Chiefs more one-dimensional, disguising their coverages to confuse Mahomes, which allows the defensive line to create more pressure. Of course, this is much easier said than done, as only 3 teams all of last season were able to effectively stop this offense from scoring and pull out a win. But additionally, I think that the Lions should prioritize coverage on the Chiefs' receivers to limit their big play potential. It's not just about Mahomes. It's not just about corralling and bottling up Mahomes. It's about what you're doing on the outside or the exterior of the play, to limit this offense from having, catching lightning in a bottle and making it a very tough day for the Detroit Lions. So what do I mean by that? Namely, I think if you remove McKinnon and Kelsey from the equation, which is a very tall task, meaning I need them to at least limit 2 of their high-profile players, then the Lions have a chance. They have the best chance. It's unlikely that they're going to be able to limit 2 of their high-profile players. But that's what they would really have to do to have the best chance to win. They would almost have to sell out and leave somebody open on purpose with the hope that the defense can get to Mahomes quicker than Mahomes can get the ball out. How can this be done? Can it be done? Well, we're going to look to the next topic for answers. And we're going to talk about the ability to pressure Mahomes and how this may be possible by exploiting the Chiefs' new offensive tackles. But before we do that, we take a quick break and we're going to check out the chat. All right, if I didn't say it earlier, I'll say it now. Please check out the Villain Squad store. That's at villainsquad.store. We're putting up a lot of different custom designed t-shirts and hoodies and other apparel and accessories for you guys to scoop up and wear at game day or on game day, at your home, at the bar, wherever you like to watch the Detroit Lions play. I've got one of the Detroit Grit t-shirts on today. It's a great fitting t-shirt, feels wonderful, it's soft, fits good. It's got a wonderful design on it. But all right, we'll move forward here. Let's talk about Mahomes. Let's talk about how exploiting his offensive tackles is going to help these Lions win. Hopefully. All right, so the Chiefs added, give me 1 second. All right, so the Chiefs added 2 new offensive tackles in 2023. Really wasn't by choice, but they added Donovan Smith and Juwan Taylor. Smith will play on the left side. Taylor's going to play on the right side. And the reason why, that they made the change, or why the change happened, is that both of their starting offensive tackles in 2022 were lost to free agency. Orlando Brown Jr. is now a Cincinnati Bengal, and Andrew Wiley is now a Washington Commander. I cannot believe that Orlando Brown went to the Bengals after all of that crap going between the Chiefs and the Bengals, and how they are probably the biggest rivalry in the game right now. I can't believe he defected to the Bengals. That's a big no-no. So the Chiefs also drafted Wanya Morris in the 3rd round. And this was solely done to create competition, of course, for both positions. But as expected, as of right now, Juwan Taylor and Donovan Smith are going to be starting at right and left tackle for the Chiefs come Thursday. So let's look at these two tackles and their recent performances and see if it tells us anything. Juwan Taylor was drafted 35th overall in the 2nd round by the 2019 Jaguars. In the 2nd round of 2019 by the Jaguars. Per PFF, he's coming off his 2 worst seasons as a run blocker with grades of 39.7 and 42.8. Conversely, his pass blocking was marginal to good, with an average grade of 74 over the last 2 seasons. He ranked as the 65th best offensive tackle in 2022. And this next part makes no sense to me, because he was ranked in the top 15 for pass blocking. He only allowed 5.2% of passing, only allowed pressure on 5.2% of passing sets and 2.5% pressure rate on dropbacks. So I just don't understand how you can be so terrible in run blocking and only marginal to good in pass blocking, yet have incredible stats like that for pressure rates and percentages. Anyway, I digress. He's really kind of a mixed bag, I guess. Quite honestly, I don't think anyone knows just how good or bad, he's going to be in this offensive scheme. But based on his trends and from what I've researched, it appears that he might have another bad season with penalties. He averages like 10 a season. And again, just based on the ebb and flow of when he has bad seasons, it's like every other season since 2019, he's committed 39 penalties. So putting pressure on him might help the Lions to create some false starts. It should be noted, though, that in 2022, he had one of his better games of the season versus the Lions. And to me, that stood out like a sore thumb. So it was his 3rd best graded game of the season with the pass blocking. In the pass blocking and run blocking, he had an overall PFF rating of 70. So what was his overall ranking for? Anyway, Smith has been in the league since 2015, drafted by the Bucks. Donovan Smith, this is the other guy that they brought in, has been in the league since 2015. He was drafted by the Bucks, number 34 in round 2, so 34th overall in round 2. Smith had the lightest season of snaps throughout his playing career. He only played, what was it? About 890 snaps. And he posted his worst run blocking rate to date, 40.8. He was about par for the course with his pass protection of at a rating of 71, with an overall rating of 59.3. So what does that tell you? So Smith is going to be playing the left side. Let me go back and look here. Yeah. So Smith will be on the left side, which, see, Patrick Mahomes, is he right-handed or left-handed? I don't remember I think he's right-handed. So if he's going to be on the left side, that's going to be the weak, or the blind spot for Holmes. You've got to pressure this guy. You have to. But again, this is the Chiefs we're talking about. We have no idea how good they're going to be within the scheme. But why am I reading all this? Like, why is this all, so very important or vital or key? It's telling us a story of where the Chiefs are, where they were, who's playing where, how good are they, where are these opportunities, what are our risks, where are the keys existing to this game that the Lions can press and have success with. So when you look at two new offensive tackles into this very intricate scheme that Andy Reid runs, to me, that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity, where they're not going to be the most comfortable, and that's where you're going to want to send pressure. It's easier to run downhill than it is uphill. And in my opinion, you're running downhill at these guys, and you've got to take every opportunity, to make them more uncomfortable and to start, creating penalties, holding off, false starts, you name it. You've got to make these guys uncomfortable. So if you were to make a comparison, to our top-rated offensive line, Penei Sewell rated 84.5 in run blocking, 70.7 in pass protection, with an overall ranking of 79.8 and 10 penalties last season as a right tackle. And you compare that to Jawaan Taylor, who had a 39.7 run blocking, not even half the rate of Penei Sewell. And his pass blocking, was marginal to good at 74. And you look at the success of somebody like Penei Sewell, and you also look at, the things that he dealt with last season. I mean, I would say that Penei Sewell is obviously head and shoulders above Jawaan Taylor. And here you've got Aiden Hutchinson, Charles Harris, John Kaminsky, Aleem McNeil, Josh Paschal. You've got all these guys that are going up against this offensive line day in and day out, sharpening their tools, and learning new things every single day on how to beat an elite offensive line. And this same defense is potentially walking into KC where they may not have an elite offensive line that's anywhere close to what the Lions are able to produce. So to me, this is a big key. This is a big opportunity. And that's why I'm reading through all of this to kind of paint you a picture, of exactly who they brought in and where we should see some success in this game. So what does this all mean? The Lions can easily get overly excited, especially in this situation where they're going to want to run and rush the passer. They're going to want to blow up these two tackles, and especially their lack of continuity, and take a real advantage of the weakness at both tackle positions. And I would expect that they do just that. I believe the blitz will work at a high level, and Mahomes will get sacked at least 3 times in this game. That's my prediction, and I'm sticking with it. Mahomes is getting sacked 3 times, but it's going to require the Lions to use a very smart, very balanced blitz attack that's disguised within multiple scheme. How do we do it? And before I get too deep into all this, I want to read another question. And I want to read this other question because it really falls right into line with what we're going through right now. And I feel like it'll get answered. That question is, what defensive scheme should the Lions use to limit the effectiveness of the Chiefs' passing attack? It's almost the same exact question that we started with in the beginning. And the short answer is, and by the way, thanks, Jay, for sending in this question. Jay from Ohio, appreciate you. The short answer is, this is not going to be an easy task. And I don't believe this will be a pretty game for the Lions, at least in the beginning. I think that they're going to take some lumps. And I'm just being honest here. I mean, we can't forget that the Lions are starting an entirely new cast of defensive backs besides Jerry Jacobs. And they're starting them for the first time. So there's going to be some growing pains right off the get, right off the start. But my hope is by the second half, hopefully much before that, the Lions are going to find some success and figure out exactly what needs to be done and put it all together. So to limit the effectiveness of the Chiefs and putting up huge numbers, I think that, by keeping this game manageable and not setting your sights too high, right? You want to keep the expectations where they need to be. I think it could be really simple. They just need to mix up the coverages, including press coverage, zone, spy, and double teams. I think that they need to ensure that there's safety help over the top, on deep routes and in the short and intermediate routes, and maintaining tight coverage on the crossing patterns, I feel will really disrupt Mahomes' timing with his receivers. The three most important weapons, to key in on are Kelsey, Tony, and McKinnon. If the Lions can if the Lions can limit the run of Pacheco, right? Force Mahomes to go to Scantling, Watson, Sky Moore, or Rice, I think the Lions match up better there. Hey, we got Hatter's house in the building, or Hatter's house in the building. Go Lions. Ooh, tight game, 31-30. Lions eke it out. You must be on the field goal bandwagon, eh? I'm getting a lot of talk about the Lions pulling this out with a field goal. That would be very fitting if they had to rely on a field goal and doink it because our kicking game sucks. So welcome in, Hatter's house. Thanks for coming back. So where was I here? Limiting McKinnon, as a credible receiving threat out of the backfield and Kelsey as the number one target is something that I think the Lions are going to have to do at all costs. And how we get there is going to make more sense here in just a minute. The Lions had success with this last season. If you remember, during the first Vikings game, the Lions shut down Justin Jefferson. And they let up on other players to make the plays. It was almost like a bend, don't break on everybody but Jefferson. Completely lock down Jefferson, limit everything that he's able to do, but let the other guys get all the stats and run wild. Just don't let them score. I do not like that approach in this game, but I feel like you almost have to deploy a very similar strategy to putting that same type of strategy, I guess, on Kelsey at least, right? Question that just popped in here from Myers Farm. What ranking in the league is KC's O-line? Good question. I have not searched that yet this season, so let's do it right now. And I would say this, though, Myers Farm, I really feel like it's a giant guess because this offensive line has not played yet together. You got Juwan Taylor and what was the other guy's name? Donovan Smith that are new, to this team. So let's take a look here. It looks like Chiefs might have the third-ranked defense. Highlighted in green are left tackle Donovan Smith, right tackle Juwan Taylor. But for the second time in a few years, the Chiefs, what's on NFL or PFF, Chiefs have overhauled both tackle spots in the offseason. Donovan Smith allows them to keep career right tackle Juwan Taylor on the right side. Smith allowed 6 sacks in 2022 in his worst season in the NFL, which is kind of what I was just stating a minute ago. And where else would I say? But he will only be 30 this season and could easily bounce back to a solid baseline. See, there's a lot of guessing going on. Their top offensive lineman is their center in Creed Humphrey. He didn't let up a sack all season long. He scored about a 79.7 for his pass blocking grade. But they're saying that the Chiefs have a better offensive line than the Lions. Lions are ranked 5th. So I really don't know. I guess rankings are rankings. I mean, I think rankings are about as credible as the same paper we used to, flush down the toilet, to be honest with you. Until we see it on the field. People are just guessing right now. That's a great question. Thank you. So moving forward here, kind of lost where I was. All right. Okay, so the Lions had success, like I said, last season with limiting Justin Jefferson. And like I said, I feel like if they deploy that same type of strategy with locking down Kelsey and then making the rest of the Kansas City's offense beat you, I think that's going to bode a lot easier of a task than just letting Kelsey do Kelsey things. The problem that the Lions faced when they went up against the Vikings for the second time is Justin Jefferson went off, and they did it in a reverse manner. Let's let Jefferson beat us and be the only one. Let's lock down everybody else. And that's what kind of happened. And that didn't really end well for the Lions. I mean, he had a career day on the Lions. So if they're going to do it, they're going to have to do it in the way that makes sense. And that's take Kelsey out of this game. Do not let McKinnon be a passing threat at all. And make them beat us through the run. And by everyone else that's, suited up to play receiver that day. This gets a little more interesting as we keep going here, because the other question that came in this week is what type of offense the Chiefs run. And I found this to be very interesting that it was termed this way. But the Kansas City Chiefs run Andy Reid's version of the West Coast offense. If you remember, the Lions used to run the West Coast offense for many, many, many years. But this version is called the Reid's West Coast Gun. I'll say that again. It's the Reid's West Coast Gun. I found that very interesting. He just makes up his own name for an offense, and hey, it works. But this pass first offense is run out of the shotgun primarily. It focuses on spreading out the defense and finding the open grass, on the boundaries where someone's going to get open. Their most common passing concept is called Hank, and this is where the receivers will run an intermediate curl route and then kind of sit down on the route, settling somewhere between a window of defenders where someone's going to be open potentially. But what does that do? I mean, that limits cover 3 and cover 4 in deep alignments. And the reason why I enunciated deep is because when we get a little bit further into what I'm going to bring to your attention tonight, I really feel like there's a couple of concepts that can be run to mix up Kansas City a little bit. So the Chiefs are also, more prone to using intermediate throws, the screen game, which also will play against the deep safeties. And deep safeties meaning like deep cover 3, deep cover 4, type of schemes that they would be running. So Patrick Mahomes usually reads the rail option first, then he goes the under mesh, and then he'll finally hit the sit route. The sit route is often open, and that's because the defense usually has to disperse to cover the rail or the shadow routes. And by that point, someone's open. The play's continued for too long. It's gone past 3 seconds, and 3 seconds in the NFL is a lifetime. But this style of offense really prioritizes passing over running. And I think that's why, Edwards-Helaire really started to kind of get walked back last season, that they really weren't going to depend on that rushing attack as much as they had hoped. And the passing game works, why go away from it when they're so effective at it? And everyone is so scared of playing Kansas City and their passing attack that they allow all these rushing yards to happen some games. So the Lions have to be keyed in on both sets. They have to take care of the passing and the running game. And it's not going to be an easy task at all. The West Coast offense was designed, really to control the tempo of the game, move quickly to tire out a defense. And these non-traditional type of routes that they run with a lot of motions, a lot of disguise, a lot of commotion and chaos kind of happening around the line of scrimmage, both pre and post snap, is what confuses defenses and why Patrick Mahomes is really able to have a lot of success. So this is not going to be an easy game at all. The Chiefs also primarily use trips, which is a 3-by-1 formation, 3 to the left, 1 to the right, 3 to left, 1 in the back, vice versa. They use these formations about 46% of the time, which ranked 5th in the league last year. And as I got diving into this, right, and I went to another question that popped up, and I thought maybe this is the time to kind of throw this in here because it's a great question. Are there any historical statistics or trends that suggest a winning formula for the Lions against the Chiefs? The answer is yes and no. The Chiefs haven't lost bunches of games in a long time. And there's a reason for it. It's either there's teams that don't have the right personnel, or they don't have the right coaches calling the right schemes, or a collection of both, or the Chiefs are just that damn good. But I think they're beatable, and I think this Lions team has what it takes to beat them. In the historical statistics and trends that can provide insight into the Lions' chances against the Chiefs, and analyzing, the previous matchups between the two teams, including their strengths and their weaknesses in both of those games, it can help the Lions develop a winning strategy, for this game coming up on September 7th. So additionally, I like to throw in, to this conversation a little bit of research about past performances, and we're going to look back at last season. Primarily, we're going to start with the Colts. The Colts gave the Chiefs a lot of trouble and gave them their first loss of the season. When you dissect why, it's because of the style of defense that they ran. It wasn't necessarily the offense, because the Colts didn't have a great offense last season. In that Week 3 matchup, the Colts ran a lot of zone. And they were reluctant to blitz heavy, but the blitz still was fruitful. It helped with, causing pressure. But that's not really the entire story either. The Colts run, or at least they ran last season, a 4-3 base defense as their main front with a heavy cover 3 scheme. And in that season, they ran nickel 77% of the time. They finished 3rd in cover 3 defense. The Colts, they finished 2022 with the NFL's 5th best rushing defense, 10th in sacks. They allowed 22.2 points per game, which is 11th in the NFL. And those are all great numbers. But when you think about stopping any NFL offense and winning a game, your goal is to limit that scoring to less than 21 points. The Colts were close. And in the conversation, I brought this up a few times, in the conversation that I had with Glover Quinn on a former podcast that I did last season, the magic number when he was playing was 17. He wanted to limit those offenses to 17 points. But since then, there's been quite a few there's been quite a few things that have changed with the rules to how offenses are now protected and how this is a high scoring affair, and that's what the NFL wants. I just got a message here. Give me 1 second. Let me back up here a second here. So Jacob Allen, he said, "Man, y'all are really sleeping hard on this receiving core. Good luck." So Jacob, are you a Chiefs fan, buddy? And if so, tell us why you think we're sleeping on them. I'm just not worried at this point. Kelsey's the main contributor. I mean, all the stats that I could read off right now will show you that, yeah, there's some players that scored some TDs, but they didn't have a bunch of yards. And Kelsey was the main driver of that entire offense, along with McKinnon, and how many TDs he was able to put through the air. Hatter's house. Lions have DBs to cover them and safeties to read Mahomes. Bingo. That's where I'm getting on this. And I know this is a very long discussion, right? There's a lot of information I'm throwing out there. And that's where I'm getting to, and you'll see here in just a minute. What is this Bugs traded? Because I just got a message that someone was saying something similar, and now I see it on here too. This is part of the problem when you're on a podcast. I can't hear my phone. So someone let me know what's going on with that. That'll be very interesting. Unexpected, because he was having such a great offseason and training camp. So he is traded to who and how much or whatever is not known yet. Well, this is just insane to me. So the other day, when the final roster came out, little birdie chirped in my ear and said, "Hey, the Lions are working on a deal." And that deal didn't come through that night. So a lot of people on my pages and that were saying, "Hey, I thought, the Lions were working on a deal. What happened?" I'm like, "Well, I guess there wasn't any legs on the deal." Things happen like this in the NFL. They start working on something and then it fizzles out. And then they start working on something and then it fizzles out. Well, we're only a few days past when the roster came out, and now this is done. Or at least you guys are hearing that it's done. I haven't seen or heard anything yet. So, yeah. That'll be interesting. Let me know what's going on. Broken Tubing. Hey, welcome in. And thanks for helping us with some updates here. How will the Chiefs stop the Lions? So we're going to have that show on Wednesday. I'm only prepared tonight to do how the Lions are going to be able to stop the Chiefs. And this is such a long episode on covering all of these fine points and schematics and stats and history and analysis and everything else, that I had to break it up into two. And plus, I'm doing it on my own tonight. And it's not as easy as some people will probably want to think. It's tough. It helps to have someone break up the monotony and rest my voice, and talking for straight hours is not the easiest thing in the world. So we got Jonathan. I can't see your last name. It says Mahomes' average TD distance has steadily declined over the past 4 years. If we watch Kelsey closely and take him out of the equation, we win. That's part of the strategy that I'm putting together. And I think part of the strategy that every NFL team probably puts together, right? I mean, stop Kelsey. Has anyone been able to do it? Hardly anyone. And I didn't get that deep into which teams limited Kelsey more than others and how it matched up to their defensive schemes. I probably should have. But let me see. We got more cryptic tweets and stuff coming out too. Bugs wasn't at practice today, and then posted a cryptic tweet. Interesting. Do we have any hard evidence that he's actually been traded? I'm not going to jump on my phone until after the show. That would be rude. Because I could be on my phone forever trying to find stuff. All right, let me wind this back a little bit. So the Colts really gave the Chiefs some fits, and they beat them in that Week 3 matchup last season. And they beat them primarily because of the type and style of defense they run and the schemes that they run. Like I alluded to, the conversation I had with Glover Quinn last season, it was you keep those offenses to 17 points and you're giving your offense a better opportunity, the best opportunity to go and win games. If your offense can't put up 20 points a game, that's a problem, right? But if your defense can't hold teams to less than 17, or what I consider now 21 points to be that bar, there's problems. And the Lions had a lot of problems, last season with stopping just about any team from scoring more than or less than 27 points. So we have to see that fixed this season. And the Lions have done some things this offseason and during this training camp and with the players that they targeted in the draft and free agency and made some changes to their defense. And we'll get to that in just a second too. But anyway, the Colts were almost exactly where you want to be statistically with what they were able to produce last season as a team defense. They just didn't have the offense to win more games and to have a better season. Takes two to tango, right? I mean, the Lions had a great offense and a terrible defense through the first 8-9 weeks. The defense finally turned around, was probably in that top 15, 18 category the last 7 weeks of last season. But that's how they have to start this season. They can't start at 32. They need to start as a top 15 defense. So the second team that gave the Chiefs some fits were the Bills. The Buffalo Bills beat the Chiefs last season. And they switched from a 3-4 defense to a 4-3 scheme last season. And if you guys are catching my, what I'm putting down here, it's 4-3, 4-3, 4-3. The Lions switched from a 3-4 hybrid to a 4-3. Now they've switched to something even more different from that, but they can still utilize the 4-3 front. The Bills switched from a 3-4 to a 4-3 last season. The Bills have a mixed, collection of players who can play different roles depending on the fronts that they use. The Bills' formation is the nickel with a 4-3 front as the primary look. The Bills ran nickel defense about 94% of the time in 2022. If I had a bell, I would ding it because I would say that you guys are probably starting to catch on to what I'm putting down here, and that's 4-3, nickel, 4-2-5, and run it a lot. And you're going to have a heck of a lot more success in this league, especially in a passing league. And if you don't know, the nickel defense is really just the deployment of a fifth defensive back. The Bills' primary coverage shells, though, is where it got more interesting. The shells were primarily cover 1, cover 3, and cover 4. If you remember from the first team that we spoke about, the Colts, they're primarily in cover 3, cover 4. So the Bills were the second highest rated in red zone defense. They were first for the first 7 weeks. Will finish 7th in the run defense. They had the best passing defense last season, running both zone and man. The Lions last season ran a ton of man, but they're not afraid to run zone, and I think that they need to go to more of a zone attack. And again, we'll get to more of that here in just a second. But their defense, the Bills' defense, is a multi-front attacking and pressure style of defense. They take advantage of what their players do well. Sound familiar, doesn't it? We hear that all the time from Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, AG, Ben Johnson, and anybody else under this coaching tree. And quite simply, the Lions are going to put their players on the field and in position and do the things that they do well. They want to get the best out of them by allowing them to play to their strength. Let me get to a couple more questions and comments here, and I'm going to take a break and move on to the Cincinnati Bengals here in just a second. Chiefs fan here. Hey, welcome in, Chiefs fan. Give me just a second here. All right, Chiefs fan here. He says the Lions definitely are capable of beating us. It's made more difficult with the game at Arrowhead, but helped if Chris Jones isn't signed. You're exactly right, and then that's one of the things that, and another reason why we're waiting until Wednesday is to do the other half of this show is we don't know what's up with Chris Jones. He is a huge component to how we write our show for Wednesday and how we dictate our answers to how the Lions offense can beat the Chiefs defense. Another question came in from John, who's a Chiefs fan. says our wide receivers are underrated in his opinion. I'm expecting Sky Moore is going to take off. Richie James is a solid signing. Kadarius Toney is healthy and dangerous, and Justin Ross is getting better with every game. So my question for you, John, is how often did Justin Ross play? Because from what I'm reading, he's like the 7th receiver on your depth chart. And if the Chiefs only dress 5, I don't see Justin Ross making this roster for this Thursday's game. And that's where I'm concerned too, is I would much rather see Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney versus a Richie James and a Justin Ross. I'd rather see Watson in there all day over a Justin Ross. Got some more questions in here. Myers Farm. How willing do you think Campbell is to gambling given our kicking game and our desire to keep this game close? It's an interesting question. If I understand it, gambling meaning going for it on 4th down and not taking the 3 points when there's a makeable field goal, or because if that's the question, I would say the answer is yes, he's going to gamble because he has no trust in our kicking game. I would say if it's a 40-yard field goal or under, he's going for it. If it's over 40, I said that backwards. If it's a 40-yard field goal or less, he's going to kick the ball. If it's over 40, he's going for it. And that's because, if you think about it, where would the ball be if it's a 40-yard field goal? You'd be right around, 20-yard line, 25-yard line, somewhere in that area, 20-yard line. So you're putting the offense, if you do miss, they're not in a great position. They are where they would be if, you kick the ball off and scored. All right, I'll come back to a few more of these. Well, let's get this one in here. Chiefs have a top 3 O-line in the league. I'm not the one wilding, man. I mean, what do you mean by that, Jacob? That's just what's being reported by PFF. So I'm not the one that's saying it. That's PFF saying it. John wrote us in again. Lastly, Rashee Rice. Yes, I do like Rashee. I wanted the Lions to bring him in, but he's shown some explosiveness through Reed. Typically doesn't rely on rookie wide receivers. As far as the Colts game, check the turnovers and missed field goals. KC lost, but Indy didn't win. So who created the turnovers? And did Kansas City miss field goals? Must have been what happened, but who created the turnovers? I mean, someone's got to create turnovers unless they were, self-inflicted, which, hey, if you're not winning the turnover battle, you're going to lose games. And that's what we're hoping and expecting happens in this game. John, I apologize, but we got to get the ball from you. That's the best way to beat the Chiefs. Let's take the ball back. So, all right, let me get to a few more of things that I prepared here. So, the last team last season against the Bengals, they gave Kansas City some fits. And again, there's a very big commonality between these 3 teams. The Bengals also run a 4-3 base front defense. So they are known for their ability to switch between man and zone, and especially do it on the fly, which I feel like the Lions are a little bit more stingy, or they at least have been in the past, of not switching on the fly. And maybe now they have more of a veteran presence, they'll be able to do that. They also rotated their safeties after the snap to pick up, the very specific routes that they keyed in on, after the snap or pre-snap. So I think that when you really break a lot of this down and you look at history, like this question asked, are there any historical or statistical tendencies to look at to beat the Chiefs? Well, let's just look at last season. What did they change from last season? They have some changes on their offensive line. They brought back, 4 or 5 out of their, 7 receivers from last season. They brought in a couple new receivers. They lost 2 main receivers, but their constants are there. They have the same center. They have the same quarterback. They have the number 1 threat in the tight end in Travis Kelce. That's all they really needed last season to have success. They're bringing back McKinnon, who, really was their top receiving running back and another top receiving threat. So they're bringing back a lot, but I think, as the story goes here, the defenses that gave them the most trouble were a 4-3 defense. And the Bengals, again, they were the third most in interceptions in the league with 16 last season. They allowed a league best 58.9% completion percentage. And when it says league best, that's really league worst. However, they ranked, which is a good thing, they ranked 11th in the pass defense and 16th in the run defense. Bengals are a tough team. And if you're hovering, in that top 15 area, run and pass as a defense, you can beat the Chiefs. And that's what we're hoping for out of this defense this season, out of the Lions. Can they go from 32 to 15? Better yet, can they break top 10, about halfway through the season? Can they get there? That's my goal for this Lions defense, is I want them to get into a top 10 defense season in and season out. I expect that they'll start a little slow, but it can't be slow like it was last season. They definitely have to come out firing a lot faster than that. So, okay, that's a ton of info, right? And what the hell does it all mean, really? The Lions defense learned a lot last season utilizing the 4-3 base. They learned a lot on how to lose. They learned a lot on how to win. They made solid progressions the latter half of the season. If they can build on that, and now they've adopted this 4-2-5 front. I don't know if you guys caught this, but almost all training camp long, they were in a 4-2-5. Very often. I didn't get to see them enough to see it, firsthand, but the more I studied the plays and watched the games from this preseason, they were in 4-2-5 quite a bit. And if the Lions defense can switch between both of these fronts, when you scheme it and you disguise it as a 4-3 and you're able to stay, into a 4-2-5, that gives them more options. That gives them more versatility. It keeps an extra DB on the field. We knew right away this offseason when the Lions went DB heavy in free agency, adding a versatile player like, Gardner Johnson, adding a shutdown corner like a Cam Sutton, adding another versatile two-way player like Brian Branch, heavy hitter, sticky defender, safety and nickel, DB. I knew that they were going to deploy more of this nickel defense, primarily in a cover 3, cover 4 shell. I just want it to be a shallow shell, not a deep shell. And then adding somebody like Jack Campbell, who's an edge-to-edge linebacker, somebody who can cover, and he can also stuff the run. The Lions are set up well to run exactly what the Bengals, the Colts, and I'm sorry, memory's gone. The Bengals and the Colts did last season, and give these Chiefs some fits. If they study up on these games and they look what worked well and what didn't work well, I think it's going to lend to greater success this season. All right, so next up, we've got another question that came in from Lisa, who is a Chiefs fan. We did have a Chiefs fan email us, and her question is, what are the keys for the Lions defense to help keep the Chiefs off the field and limit Mahomes' success with broken plays turning into big plays? I was a little miffed as to why a Chiefs fan would ask us this. Maybe they're really not a Chiefs fan, but they said they were. But I'll say it again. What are the keys for the Lions defense to help keep the Chiefs off the field and limit Mahomes' success with broken plays turning into big plays? So a great question, but Lisa, before I get to that, we're going to jump back into the chat, and we are going to look at what just came in. So it looks like Myers Farm, I did answer your question there. Did I even answer it, though? I guess is the real question. Another one from John. It says, Buffalo and Cincy beat us. We played great. They played better. The Colts game was one of the games where we managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. The Lions know that all too well, my friend. We really do. So, John, you going to be at the game on Thursday? Have you been to a game? It's just a very eclectic atmosphere, Arrowhead. I've never been to the stadium myself. Another one by John is I think all 7 wide receivers will play, and Mahomes is going to spread the ball around. I apologize. Lions need it to be a track meet, and I think we'll do that. If Jones is there, our D is greatly improved. If not, So you don't think Karlaftis is gonna help fill in where Jones is missing? Is he not ready yet? So another statement by Jacob Allen. He says, I think it's hilarious that Lions fans think they will be able to slow Mahomes down. Your defense was hot garbage last year. It was. You're darn right it was for the first 8 games. And then after that, they were a top 15 defense. One of the best defenses. Nobody wanted to touch the Lions at the end of the season last season. So be careful what you wish for, Jacob, because I promise you we're coming. And it's not going to be an easy game for Kansas City. I can promise you that. But your hot garbage take, yeah. I mean, they were terrible. They were pitiful in the first 8 games. But after that, different season for the Lions. Hey, do we find any more out on this Bugs trade? Anybody see anything else that's going on? I really hate that I'm missing that right now, but we'll get back to it after the show. All right, so back to this question from Lisa, the Chiefs fan. What are the keys for the Lions defense to help keep the Chiefs off the field and limit Mahomes' success with broken plays turning into big plays? And for me, we see it all too often, right? So Mahomes is a mastermind at taking, what is a 2.5 second play and turning it into a 3.5, a 4.5, a 5 second play by extending either the play with his legs or, utilizing very unique and tricky motions at the line of scrimmage and chaos at the line of scrimmage that spreads out the defense. And then, he's able to use his legs to continue the play to find somebody open. If the Lions can limit Mahomes to 3 seconds or less, and that's a long time in the NFL, and it's an eternity in the NFL, they'll have success. But if plays start to go over 3 seconds, it's very difficult for a Lions, D-back to stick and be sticky, like I said earlier. So for that reason, though, but for this reason, I apologize. For this reason of the Lions changing defensive fronts from a 4-3 to a 4-2-5, but being able to stay in a 4-3 and disguise it. I think that I can come up with some very compelling arguments why the cover 3 and cover 4 schemes will be an exceptionally and effective method in countering the Kansas City Chiefs' high-powered passing attack and shut down the run. And here are my reasons. First, let's take a quick drink of this Coke. Let's get into it. First and foremost, versatile coverage combinations. By incorporating both the cover 3 and cover 4 concepts, the defense gains a very versatile toolbox of coverage options. Cover 3 zones can effectively defend against deep passes and intermediate routes, while cover 4 provides additional support against deep threats. This combination keeps the Chiefs' passing game guessing and minimizes the opportunities for big plays. But as I said earlier, I don't think the deep threat is what we really need to worry about in this game. I don't see a big-time deep threat unless Rashee Rice suits up. I really don't. I mean, Kelsey is Kelsey, but he's not a burner, right? Sky Moore is the only burner on this team that can get deep in a hurry. So you bottle up Kelsey, you limit McKinnon, and you target Sky Moore, and you're going to limit the big play. But if you're in a cover 3 or a cover 4 shallow, and you've got that extra man up in the box, I think that lends a lot of versatility to this defense being very effective. So my second point is a balanced run defense. The 4-3 and the 4-2-5 both naturally provide more of a stout run defense compared to other formations. By having an extra linebacker or the extra safety up in the box, the defense can better defend that run. without compromising the pass coverage. This forces the Chiefs into longer yardage situations, primarily on third down, making it more challenging to convert on third downs. My third point is pressure and blitz options, which the Lions did have a lot of success with last season. With the pressure and blitz options in the 4-3 and 4-2-5 formations, they permit more of a flexibility, if you will, in the pass rushing strategies by mixing, the blitzes, the stunts. The defense can also apply consistent and constant pressure on Mahomes without sacrificing coverage integrities. So this makes it really hard for Mahomes to set up and execute deep throws when there's a constant mix of coverage, going on in the back half. If the Lions are playing shallow and they're able to run deep, if they're able to protect shallow, stop the run, and you're utilizing the same cover front as a 4-3 or a 4-2-5, it's going to confuse the Kansas City offense just a little bit. Will it confuse Andy Reid? Probably not. But that's where we're going to have to lend to the ability of the Lions defense and the true nature of being a gritty defender in Motown. And they're just going to have to play their best football game. My fourth point, though, is coverage flexibility. And all of these points are adding up to why I did the research that I did. I did the research that I did because, hey, thanks, John, for joining us. He said he enjoyed the show. Hey, we're not done yet, but I appreciate you coming on. We're happy to have all fans on. It's some of these shows we're going to engage with fans from the opposing side and really duke it out a little bit. But until then, we appreciate anybody coming on. Enjoy the rest of your day. From Broken Tubing to John. So, and the next question or the next statement in from Hatter's House is the way you slow him down. I got to pull it off the screen. I won't be able to read it. The way you slow him down is by keeping him off the field, 100%, which the Lions can do by running the ball and controlling the clock. Exactly. And we'll get into some of that on Wednesday. I don't want to go too deep off into the weeds on offense tonight because I could be there all day. I'll never get this finished. So anyway, these points that I've created here, it really lends to the credibility of what AG and Dan Campbell are putting together. And what they have put together is really manifested into a defense that it can be so adaptive and so creative and so versatile that any offensive scheme that they go up against, they're going to have a package for it. They're going to have a plan for it. They can walk into the game and do whatever they want at will and have the flexibility as long as these guys stay healthy, which is every NFL team's Achilles heel, right? I mean, literally, their Achilles heel. They got to stay healthy. All right, so coverage flexibility. In the cover 3 scheme, the field is divided into 3 deep zones and with 4 underneath defenders. This structure provides balanced coverage that can effectively neutralize both the deep threats and the intermediate passing options that we know the Chiefs love to run and exploit. The 3 deep defenders can help prevent the Chiefs from completing the deep passes, while the 4 underneath defenders can contest the shorter throws. Also stops the run. So the coverage flexibility lends to the ability of being able to stop the run. Look, if they're getting 4 or 5 at a clip and you're able to shut them down on third down, that's all that matters. I have no qualms in saying that I expect Mahomes to go for it on some 4th downs in this game. If the Lions are able to keep him slowed down to a degree, right? Keep him off the field, keep the pressure on. He's going to have to go for some 4th downs. So the zone discipline is the next main point that the 4-3 and the 4-2-5, fronts really offer. And when they're in a cover 3 and a cover 4 scheme, they can really emphasize specific and disciplined zone coverage attacks. And within the assignments of these zones, protecting these zones or covering these zones, and by maintaining depth within the secondary, This Chiefs offense, which really, again, it thrives on exploiting defensive breakdowns, mismatches, and mismatches, and by maintaining disciplined zone coverage, how it can limit the big play potential and force them into shorter, less explosive passes, which, again, we have to be able to limit the yak. Mahomes and his crew are one of the best at getting yak yards. Now, they don't have a Tyreek Hill anymore, right? But somebody like Sky Moore can burn you up. You know, he is very elusive and he is shifty, and he's probably one of the fastest guys in the NFL. So, you know, we can't doubt his ability. They've got to bottle him up. And small guys are hard to bottle up. But anyway, to finish this thought here on zone discipline, you limit these big plays by forcing them into shorter, you know, less explosive passes, and then they're less likely to get caught out of position too. So it reduces these chances, you know, and that's what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to reduce what I said in the beginning of this podcast. We need to find the opportunities and reduce the risks. And I think if you go to a coverage scheme that lends credibility to what three teams, you know, did to help stop the Chiefs last season, and to the Chiefs fans' point, you know, maybe the Chiefs lost the game on their own. It still speaks volumes that those three teams run this type of scheme that the Lions are running now. It's just how quickly can the Lions get up to speed and being able to implement and deploy all of these different coverage schemes and all the nuances within these schemes to utilize such a broad attack and you know, stay disciplined. So thanks, Myers Farm. Yeah, we've been doing some research, man, and I have been hard at work trying to put a lot of this together. I just wish I had my partner on tonight because it helps to balance out the podcast and gives me a break, gives me a moment to think. Sometimes I feel like it sounds like I'm just blurting everything out, which I don't want to do. So my next point is reducing yards after catch, which I already said earlier. They need to stop the yak. And again, if you're in that 4-2-5 and you've got 5 DBs, you know, in a shell surrounding, you know, the intermediate zones, the deep zones, you've got linebackers that can cover the run and the, you know, intermediate flat. And then you've got your front, you know, 4 that can put pressure on Mahomes and also stop the run. There's no reason why someone should get a bunch of yak yards. We saw that a lot last season too. That bend but don't break defense seemed to bend but break, and it broke a lot. They gave up a lot of big plays last season, and that really hurt them. You can't do that. You've got to get these teams off the field. You know, okay, so in a series, if they complete, you know, the first 2, you know, sets of downs and they get first downs, great. You've got to get them off the field in less than 6 plays, 7 plays at max. Because with a team like this, you let them stay on the field for longer than that, they're going to score. And if it's not a touchdown, they're going to take the 3. Because they know that they're going to be able to do it in bunches and almost every time. The next point, pass rush options, which is what I'm most excited about. Out of the 4-3 and the 4-2-5 fronts, there's a lot more flexibility in the pass rushing strategies. By having a mix of defensive linemen and linebackers on the field, that, oh, by the way, our linebackers just got really good. You've got Alex Anzalone, Malcolm Rodriguez, Derek Barnes, Jack Campbell, Jalen Reeves-Maben. There's someone else that I'm missing. But just those 5 guys, that is a very tough linebacking room. Very stout, agile. They all bring different, you know, weapons to the game, different concepts to the game, different levels to the game. And they're going to be a very unique positional group to watch grow this season. They went from a weakness to, you know, a improved positional group last season to now a strength. Same thing happened with the DBs. They went from a weakness to what is a perceived strength on paper. And we'll see that, you know, over the next couple of weeks, hopefully. So Reducing yards after the catch. And my next point is the pass rush options. Again, you're having a mix of defensive linemen and linebackers on the field that can disguise the blitzes and the pass rush schemes effectively. I mean, think about it. If you got Brian Branch in there as your fifth DB, I mean, the guy hits like a linebacker. He can sniff out the plays, but I would love to see him in there on a lot of these blitzing opportunities. Release him, let him get in and sack Mahomes. And I have no doubt in my mind that utilizing his ability, his speed, the fact that he loves to hit, let him loose. Let him loose on Mahomes. I want to see Branch get a sack in this game. I really do. But that doesn't happen unless you're in a 4-2-5. If you're just in a 4-3-4, it's unlikely that you're going to be sending your safeties or your corners against a team like this. But if you have a fifth DB in there, there's no reason why you can't. At least once in a while, preferably on first down. The next point I'll make is adequate pass coverage. So with 3 deep defenders, and again, my scheme, my idea for this game is not to be deep. I'd like to see them more in the intermediate zone. They will be deep at some points, but I think that if they run, more of a shallow shell, I think that they'll have better opportunity and still be able to defend all phases of the game. But adequate pass coverage with the deep defenders in the cover 3 scheme can provide better support against the Chiefs' deep passing game. It allows for more help over the top, which is crucial when facing speedy and talented wide receivers like Sky Moore. And safeties, they can rotate to assist as needed. The next point is reduced risk of explosive plays. I think we've beaten that one to death. This scheme really helps us in this area. But adaptability to offensive adjustments is my last point. And when facing, a Chiefs dynamic offense that requires adaptability, fluidity, right? Playing loose, playing fast, knowing your assignment, there's nothing easier than a zone. If you are in a zone, you are in a zone. If you are in man, it gets a whole lot more difficult. So the Lions love to run man. And for this game, I hope they're, running more 60, 40, 70, 30 on the zone, heavy zone, so that it makes it easier on the defense. Putting them in man situations, especially in the beginning of the game, I think it could lend to a very rough time, especially for a team that is coming off a season that has lent to so much hype, so much discussion. I don't care who you are. Walking onto a professional football field, especially Arrowhead Stadium, to begin the season is going to give any player butterflies. I don't care if you're Tom Brady, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, Matt Stafford. I don't care who you are. Dan Marino. You're going to get butterflies. And you're going to have some, uneasiness. You're going to have some nerves. So I think the Lions do a much better job here and try to relieve some of that by giving them an opportunity to be in more of a zone man coverage. And I think that eliminating the opportunity, right, the risk of a catastrophic failure within the defense will lend to better plays for the defense, more opportunity for the defense. So in summary, what am I trying to say here? What I'm trying to say is employing the 4-3 and the 4-2-5 front in a blended scheme of cover 3 and cover 4 in a shallow shell offers a very well-rounded, adaptable approach to defending against the Kansas City Chiefs' high-powered offense. This defensive strategy combines solid run defense, versatile coverage options, pass rushing capabilities, and adaptability, like I've said time and time again. It makes for a very attractive choice to disrupt their offensive rhythm, and it minimizes their big play potential by allowing the defense to play more loose and fast within their zone. Now, what I'm not saying is to sit deep in cover 3 and cover 4, because if you do that, they're just going to chunk it underneath all day long, and they're going to eat up yards left and right. But simply just deploy, that personnel group and sit in the zones, right? Sit in the zones that allow the defensive front to have enough time to pressure Mahomes. disrupt the timing. This game is all about timing. A mere fraction of a second is the difference between a well-placed ball and a drop or an interception. So for me, it's eliminate the convoluted nature of what a defensive strategy can really be. You want to make it less about the scheme and more about the players and what they're able to do. All right, we're going to move forward here a little bit. We've got a little bit left, not much. But this is kind of where I wrap it up and do a nice little bow. Give me just a second. I'm going to take a brief 1-minute break. I need to grab something else to drink, and I'll be right back. All right, we had to put the rally cap on. We're going deep for the last segment here. So let me know in the comments. Lions going to win on Thursday. If they win, by how much? This will be a tight game. Is it going to roll into the fourth quarter? All knotted up? Even better yet, is this going to be an overtime matchup and the Lions pull it out with a field goal? We'll bet that at your local casino. No, don't do that. I didn't give you that advice. All right. So to end this podcast, we're going to talk about the matchups and a few more questions that came in. And we'll break it all down here, wrap it up nice and tight. And then on Wednesday, we're going to get into the Lions offense versus the Kansas City defense. Sounds like there's been some shakeups tonight with the roster, like Isaiah Buggs might be on the move. And we're going to find out all about that when I get off this podcast tonight. And we'll find you the story. All right. So the first question to get to for the last part of this podcast is, what are the matchups to watch that could swing the outcome in Detroit's favor? What are the matchups to watch that could swing the outcome in Detroit's favor? Great question. I didn't catch the name of this one that sent in the question, but to me, the key matchups to watch in this game are most definitely the battle in the trenches. And Detroit's offensive line and Kansas City's defensive front is a big matchup. Definitely edge to the Lions here. The Lions can win and should win that matchup, especially without Chris Jones. If he doesn't sign and get on the team before Thursday and doesn't play, then Lions should have no problem manhandling that defensive front. However, Karlaftis is not going to make it easy. But the Lions do have an advantage. But I'm going to get to more on that matchup, the offensive side, on part 2 on Wednesday at 8 o'clock. My second key or matchup, I guess, as far as swinging this into Detroit's favor, would be the Lions secondary. They definitely need to step up and contain the Chiefs' explosive nature, like we've discussed the first hour of this podcast, is the performance of individual matchups. And for instance, Cameron Sutton versus Kadarius Toney or Valdez Scantling. That will greatly impact the defense's ability to win other matchups if Cam can be a lockdown corner on Thursday night. If he can lock down his assignment, then the next man up is Jerry Jacobs. He cannot have a bad game this game. And I fear that he's going to be a hot target anyway. In the addition of CJ Gardner, obviously, will be paramount to the Lions having a chance and choices and versatility. And, he can help limit these big plays and play up in the box, forcing the Chiefs to be more one-sided. So big matchup is this secondary on the Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers. I think it's a no-brainer. The second biggest matchup, or maybe the first, really is the Lions offensive line versus Kansas City Chiefs defensive line. we know that the majority of games are won by the trenches, right? If you're solid in the trenches, the rest of what's behind you will work better. So, and lastly, I would say that the Lions linebackers are going to have a major key in this game. They're going to be tested in a big way. Travis Kelce is going to want to pick apart Jack Campbell. He's going to test them, and he's going to do it whenever he can. I think that all the motions and the short and quick passing schemes and the chaos that Kansas City loves to deploy at the line of scrimmage is going to be a challenge for anybody, but especially for a rookie. And I think that scheme benefits the Chiefs, and especially against the slower linebacker. Thankfully, Jack Campbell's not slow, but I would say that the Lions would be wise to put a shadow over Kelce. And that could be somebody like a Brian Branch or, a Gardner Johnson playing up in the box. He definitely is going to have to garner 2 defenders on Thursday night. But that is also why, again, running this 4-2-5 defense in a shallow cover 3 or cover 4 makes the most sense. Sure, let him run the ball. Let him get 100 yards on the ground. Just don't get in the end zone. Let them pass for 250 yards to everybody else but Kelce and McKinnon. If they do those 3 things, the Lions are going to win this game, along with a few other things like winning the turnover battle. Next question that came in is what special team strategies can Detroit implement to gain field position advantages and potentially score points? I don't really know how to answer this one right now because the special team strategies really don't exist. I mean, the Lions have an amazing punter. Fox is one of the best in the business. So, pinning them deep obviously is always, it's always the plan. It's, never the rule. And as far as what we've seen out of the preseason and what we know about this Lions special teams groups are that they've got electric returners. There's about 7 guys on this team that can return kicks and punts, and they're all great at it. The special teams units for the defense is played lights out. But I mean, to keep it very bland, I would say that the special team strategy should include solid kickoff and punt coverage. They've got to be able to prevent the Chiefs returners from gaining good field position. So win the turnover game, win the field position game, right? You want to win in all 3 aspects: offense, defense, special teams. Next question is what can happen in this game for the Lions defense? What cannot happen in this game for the Lions defense? A whole lot of things could happen, right? But here's what can't happen. And I did a little research about what the Eagles did and didn't do. Man, the Eagles, they had an opportunity, but they just kind of shut down. Their defense just let up. And that's exactly what the Lions defense can't do. They can't be overwhelmed. They can't think that, this game is just bigger, too big to handle. They've got to go out there and make plays. And conversely, they can't stop making plays. The minute you stop making plays is when the Chiefs are going to gash you. And that's exactly what happened to the Chiefs. Too many missed tackles in the Chiefs-Eagles game. And the one thing that I saw at a training camp was that these Lions love to hit. Notice how I said they love to hit. A few of them love to tackle. Brian Branch, for instance, loves to tackle. Stephen Gilmore loves to hit. Rodrigo loves to tackle. Jack Campbell loves to tackle. So Aiden Hutchinson loves to tackle. He loves to run through you. It's going to be paramount that the Lions defense doesn't miss tackles. None of this shoulder tackle crap. None of this, lay a hit, and hope that it turns into a tackle. No, wrap them up, pile drive them into the ground, make sure they're down. It's also how you're going to pop some balls out too. Too many blown coverages for the Eagles. So the Lions have to key in on, staying within their assignment. And that's why I keep going back to this zone defense. If they're in a zone defense, then they'll have a less propensity, less opportunity to make mistakes. Covering a zone is a lot easier than man. So, another big thing that the Eagles didn't do is they failed to sack Mahomes at least one time. I said at the beginning of the podcast, the Lions are going to sack Patrick Mahomes 3 times in this game. And I think one of them is going to come out of the defensive backfield. I think that we're gonna send somebody like a Branch or a CJ Gardner-Johnson, and they're going to get him. So they have to sack Mahomes. The minute you start putting him on his back and give him a little twist on the ankle as he goes down, right? I'm just kidding. Don't want to see anybody hurt. But saying that, I did have a weird dream the other night. It was about a month and a half ago, or whenever the schedule came out. I had this really stupid, vivid dream that I never forgot. And that was that the Lions broke Patrick Mahomes' leg and won the game. Now, they didn't obviously do it on purpose, right? But that it happened. Really vivid, weird dream. I don't know why I even had it, But I guess if you're dreaming about the Lions, you must really love the Lions. Or I'm spending way too much time covering them. One of the two. So, moving forward, the Lions, they have to care about Mahomes and his scramble ability. One of the biggest Achilles heels for the Lions defense last season was mobile quarterbacks. Hurts hurt us. Fields hurt us. The Panthers, rushing attack hurt us. For whatever reason, the first 8 weeks, Hutchinson had a really big problem letting too many yards run through his gaps, his assignment, his edge. So he's got to set the edge. And when you set the edge and you stay home, you're going to limit the scramble ability. And I think that's going to be a big key to this game is that Mahomes is not able to move. He's got to stay within the box, and you've got to shut him down. If you're going to collapse the edge, you've got to have somebody coming up the middle. Again, 4-2-5 defense does that. So I think that's really it. I mean, those are the things that they can't do. They cannot not stop Mahomes from the scramble. They can't fail to sack Mahomes. They can't have blown coverages. They can't have missed tackles. And they have to continue making plays. They can't stop making plays. So a few more points here. Another question that came in. How can the Lions have a better outcome than the Eagles? Well, I think I just kind of said all of that to a degree. But, I guess when you think about it, look, it's really not that simple. And it's hard to compare two different teams, from two different seasons. But, from a layman's terms or from a simple explanation standpoint, the Lions need to focus on key points that give them a higher chance at pulling off the biggest upset of the season. And that would be that the Lions need to get takeaways, okay? They've got to win the takeaway battle. Have to. If they can manage to get at least one takeaway per half and get at least 10 points off the takeaways for the entire game, they can win this game, or they're going to have a much better opportunity of winning this game. They can't allow the missed tackles, like I just said a minute ago. Those can extend plays into big problems. I think that they can achieve a lot of this by, of course, utilizing this, shallow shell and 4-2-5 defense, but also playing as a hive, right? I've been saying it all off season, training camp, preseason. They've got to be a hive. When you think about bees in a hive, you got worker bees, they all work together. The only time these guys or these bees do something separate is when they go out and gather their pollen, and that's really about it. So I'm preaching this all the time, that if they can just play unselfishly, right, and not worry about individual stats, focusing on working together as a cohesive unit, bottling up the offense on every play, they'll have success in stopping the Chiefs. But I think moreover from that, it's, look, I want to see 2 hats in on every play. I want to see 4 hats in on every running play. What I mean by that is I want to see 2 Lions making a tackle on every play, and on every running play, there should be 4 guys around the ball. that's playing in a high defense. That's playing together as a team. I think playing man coverage can lead to a lot of blown plays in this game. So I think, the Lions love man coverage. They ran it a lot last season. They ran it the second most out of all teams last season. That's a shocker that with as putrid of a secondary that the Lions had last season, that they didn't give up more yards than they did, but they gave up a hell of a lot of yards. They're terrible. So I think that's another key, is that they have to play some zone in this game. And I think if they're in zone at least 2/3 of the time, they're going to have a better chance. Lastly, I think, again, it's getting pressures. It's getting sacks. It's critical in this game because you want to set the tone early. And I don't think that they need to all-out blitz a ton this game. But, dialing up, the blitz at the right time, and kind of using it as a byproduct of not overcommitting or not over pursuing. I think that it'll yield sacks, and it'll definitely yield pressures. The guy that I'm most excited to see work in this game is James Houston. I think that he has to be allowed to rush. I think he has to be set free, and they should be sending Branch or Gardner or somebody else from the secondary on the DB blitz a couple of times throughout the game. I think you put in a QB spy on Mahomes and you don't let him run. We've talked about that a little bit, how keeping him bottled up and between, the tackles or inside the box it's going to be tough to do, but it's something that needs to be done so he doesn't extend these plays, for 3 seconds or more, which is going to really reduce the ability of the DBs to stay sticky. So spy Mahomes, don't let him run around. Don't let him extend the plays. Make him get rid of the ball, sack him, do something. But don't let him, continually open up the play by extending it. And then I think, disciplined defense. They got to stay home. They've got to stay within their assignment. They can't get out of position. I'm most worried about Aiden Hutchinson, believe it or not. Didn't see him play all preseason, expected. But at the same time, he's the one that had probably the worst grades last season through the first 8 weeks. And that ugly head can't rear itself again. He cannot let these guys, run past him. He can't over pursue. He's either got to set his edge and stay there and be effective and produce and pushing the ball to the other side of the field where his other playmakers can make the play, or he's got to go all out and get to the quarterback and make it happen. But this in-between stuff where it's, I'm too far in and now I'm trying to work my way back out, and then they run up the middle. It happened too much, and I don't want to see that happen again. I have no doubt in my mind that Aiden Hutchinson's going to have a stellar season. It's just, what Aiden Hutchinson are we going to get week 1? And I'll tell you right now, I think the guy is going to be balling out of control. I really do. Lastly, man, these Lions just got to have fun. All this hard work, all this dedication, all this time that they've put in, they just got to get out and enjoy the game. They can't let this moment be bigger than what it is. They can't get wrapped up in all the fanfare and festivities for the Chiefs. They just need to stay in their zone, stay in their moment, go have fun. Well, I got one last question. And that's, who are my defensive players of the game and players that need to step up? I think I've spoken through this quite a bit tonight, that there's certain positional groups that really need to step up. But I do feel that, if Aleem McNeil, is able to penetrate, able to gobble up the run, if he's able to push that line and get the pocket moving, and control the trenches, it starts with him. And it starts with, him and Pascal both having a good game up front. Houston and Hutchinson, they each need to get a sack. or some pressures. I think Houston will probably get a couple of tackles for loss. I think Sutton and Kirby Joseph need to be locked down in their assignments. I really think that Branch needs significant playing time in this game, as that fifth guy in that 4-2-5 cover or 4-2-5 front. But quite honestly, I really think it's all of them. This game is not going to be won without every single player doing their job. So that's all for part 1. You will see part 2 on Wednesday at 8 o'clock. Hopefully I'll be prepared. It's a lot to go over. Please do us a favor, though. Like, share, and subscribe. Share this video. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube. Send it out. We could use some more subscribers. Again, it's the easiest way to help support our channel and the effort. Like Myers Farm said, and then I really appreciate your compliment. Thanks for doing the research. And, he appreciates the hard work. I put in the work. And it's a lot of hours. Some days it's 15, 18 hours a day. We're trying to get better. We're trying to become more professionals with it. And we enjoy it. I enjoy it. So we do have another comment in here. The guy said, Lions win 31-17. Lock it up. Love it. Love it. BD Buster says, Bugs won't be out there. He just got scrubbed of all of his social media links for the Lions. So he did get traded. Hey, I said it a few days ago. I got a call. I was told that the Lions were working on something. And here we are. 4 days before the biggest game of the season. And Bugs has been traded or cut or something. And so my guy was right. They were working on something. It just took a few days to manifest itself, I guess. Hatter's House said, go Lions, 31-30. Man, that's such a tough prediction. I think I said 27-21 the other day. Lions win. I'd have to go back. But I'm gonna go based on a defensive performance. If the Lions can hold these Chiefs to 21 points or less, the Lions can pull this game out. And they'll win 27-21. If it gets into a shootout, and let me remind you of this little fact. The last time that Goff played Mahomes, I think it was in LA, he won 54-51. Or maybe did he lose? Either way, it was a damn shootout. Over 100 points scored in the game, and they went toe-to-toe all game long. Their defenses were terrible. So Goff is not afraid of, a firefight. He's not afraid of a shootout. He's not afraid of Mahomes. He's not afraid of anybody. Been there, done that. The guy can play in big games. He knows how to command a huddle. He knows how to command the line with his silent game, because Arrowhead is an extremely loud place. They're going to have to do a lot of silent count. And I hope this offensive line is up for the task. They're one of the most veteran offensive lines in the league. So they should be. They definitely should be. The guy said, this is the day the world witnesses a Chiefs beating. Man, 31-17 would be a Chiefs beating. I mean, that would be incredible. I do like the 17 number because Glover Quinn always says to keep them under 17 and you win. Here's my question. The guy in Hatter's House. Do the Lions outscore them early, or is this a come-from-behind victory? And I think I'll leave it at that. I'll look for your answers in the chat here in a little while. But man, I hope we see you guys on Wednesday. We're pumped up for the second part of this, and I should have a couple of guys in with me, Andy, and we should have another guest join us as well. Don't forget, on September 10th, we have a former Detroit Lion who's going to be joining us on our podcast live. We're going to be talking about his career as a Lion, what he's doing now, and get his insights on the Detroit Lions. So we're moving through the season. We should have some former players on here and there. Don't forget, too, that Soaring Eagle Casino is having a huge Lions game day kickoff with Herman War. So if you're in the area, if you want to go out to Soaring Eagle on Thursday to watch the game, they're going to have food, buffets and prizes and screens. And Herman Moore will be there. He's usually signing stuff for people. So it should be a good time. I think Micro Mike will be there as well. Mike Kimber, who also has a wonderful podcast and show with Lions Nation Unite, LNU, Lions Nation Unite. So another good guy to watch on Chat Sports. We might be out there. We might go to KC. We're not sure yet. So either way, that's all I had for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. It was a lot of stats. It was, not all the fun stuff that we try to talk about, but it's meaningful. I think that the research shows us that the Chiefs can be beat. It's just, are you going to do what it takes to beat them? Are you going to change your defense and employ, different tactics to beat this team? And I think that the Lions will do it. I think that they've had enough time on task, as Dan Campbell says, to get ready for this game. And I wouldn't doubt if they've been preparing for 4 weeks on this game or longer as a team. They got 10 days to prepare for the next team. Why not knock the first one out of the park? So that's all we had for tonight. Again, please visit the link in the bio. Check out our Villain Squad store. And we appreciate you guys joining every week like you always do. Keep hitting us up with some comments. Bring the questions like you guys have been doing. Email it to info@rockedonpodcastnetwork.com. You can visit us at Rocked On Detroit Lions on Facebook, Rocked On Podcast Network on YouTube. And we'll see y'all in a few days. Wednesday night, we're going live with part 2 of the Detroit Lions are going to kick Kansas City's butt. All right, y'all. Have a great night. One Pride.
So, we look like we're ready. But this is day one. It's about the work. And I've said that from day one. It'll always be the same message. It's about work. You got to go earn your right every year. It doesn't matter what the players are, the coaches, expectations, where you were, where you're going. We got to work, man.
Wants to throw it to Stewart. He caught it. He's going on first down. Oh, yes. The big man dives down to the 31-yard line. Oh, that is beautiful.
Let me tell you something. I love this team now. I got goosebumps, gentlemen. I love this team.
Fields looking, pressured, hit from behind, taken down. Aiden Hutchinson got him.
What do you think about the secondary?
Just look at the name, CJ Gardner-Johnson. You drafted Branch.
It started off with that huge hit on Beasley.
We call him, things out. There's a big hit right away. And boom!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions on the last St. Brown. Goff dropped it in the bucket that time.
We're in our window now to win.
Aaron Rodgers exits the NFC North as a loser.